Hey Village. So sometimes my videos can talk about a topic where it can get a little frustrating that as foster parents, as kinship caregivers, we don't have a whole lot of control over what's going on in the system. And that can be a little bit disheartening and disempowering. But today I'm going to talk about something that caregivers actually pretty much exclusively have control over. So in this video, we are going to talk about normalcy. This could be a brand new term for you, so stick around so you can learn all about it. If it's something you're familiar with, definitely check out some of my tips on how to promote it with children who are in your care. And before we jump into the topic, I want to give you guys some exciting news. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be launching a website, a Be the Village website. This is something that I have been working on with a friend of mine, Marianne, and we have been working for months, getting resources together, trying to figure out really what the purpose behind it is going to be. It's going to start off pretty bare bones and we're going to build it up, but I'm ready to get it out to you guys. I want you guys to see it. I want you guys to be a part of it. So definitely stay tuned and make sure that you are subscribed, your notifications are on, because you will definitely want to hear when that goes live. So now let's talk about normalcy. And we're gonna back up a little bit and really kind of ground ourselves in where the kids are in this whole process, because this is all about the kids. Children whose families are involved in child welfare services could remain in the home. There could be services provided to the family to maintain that family unit in a safe and supportive way. But many times the children are going to move out of the home. It's gonna be determined that that is the best situation for the child. And in those cases, that child is going to go to preferably a family member, a close friend, someone who there's already a bond with. That is the ideal situation. If there are no kinship providers, which is what we call those close family and friends, then they will be placed into a foster home most likely. So in those situations, that child, and when I say child, it's babies, toddlers, school-age children, teens, youth in care. These kids are experiencing the crisis that their family is struggling with. So whatever reason brought child welfare services, to their family, they're dealing with that crisis. On top of that, now they've basically had the rug pulled out from under them and they're experiencing so much change all of a sudden without warning. So they're in a new environment, they have a new schedule, a new routine, they have new relationships that they are navigating. And really they're grieving the loss of everything that they had before the time that they were removed. And this can be very confusing for youth in care because they want to be in a safe and supported environment, but also they want to maintain all those other things in their life. And some of these things we might kind of discount and think are pretty trivial, but to a teen or a youth, they make a big difference. Take a younger kid, for example. Maybe they're used to going to a specific park and they look forward to that park, and now they're having to adjust to a new park, and it might be exciting at first, but they just want that comfort of what they knew before. With teens, this could look like, typically after school, they get together with their friends at like Taco Bell or the gas station. They're going places with their friends. They're having that like peer time, and now they have their aunt picking them up. Because their aunt has to get back to work, so she has to pick the kids up, go back to work. They might be in a foster family, and so that foster family has a lot of things going on, so there's no time, or maybe the foster family thinks, oh, well, we can't have you unsupervised, so I have to make sure that I pick you up in case anything happens. That impacts the kids. And that's not even including the kids who are having to go to a brand new school because they're with family that lives farther away, or they're with a foster family that, they had to be placed too far out and they can't maintain that transportation to their old school. They also now have all of these grown-ups who are a part of their life, and they're checking in and they're making decisions that impact them. And yes, those people are there to support the child and support the family, but this creates really crazy schedules for the kids. It also can lead to lengthy approval processes for things that are pretty standard for any other kid. I know somebody is going to bring up prudent parenting, and that is something that we're going to talk about in this video. So stay tuned, because even though that seems like it would be the perfect answer, it often doesn't work out that way. So because of all of these reasons and many, many more, Youth who have experienced foster care report feeling very isolated and different than their peers. They feel socially excluded from typical activities. And that's why, as a caregiver, promoting normalcy in their life is critical to the success of that child. It not only improves the youth's day-to-day life, but there are benefits that last throughout their life. Normalcy promotes well-being and healthy development. Youth in care thrive when they're involved with extracurriculars that they're interested in, or getting a job after school so they can learn some of those life skills. Their life should not be put on pause just because their family is involved with child welfare services. But with all the red tape with the system, how can caregivers really do this effectively? Let's talk about it. I'm going to start with one of the less obvious ways that a foster caregiver or a kinship caregiver can promote normalcy for the child in their care, and that is advocating for that child's time. This can be difficult. It is easier said than done, but really trying to work with the therapist, which most kids are going to have therapy, ongoing therapy, because of the trauma they're experiencing. They're going to have at least a caseworker. They might have a CASA or a GAL. At some point, hopefully they have visitation set up with mom and dad. And if they have siblings and the siblings aren't in the same home, there's going to be sibling visitation. There are a lot of different appointments for this child. So the more that you can speak with their case team and figure out what can work that's going to best benefit the child, make it work. For some kids, this could look like having their therapist come and visit them at school. So, the child would be pulled for about 30 minutes to an hour, and they have their session there. Some kids may not want that because that does make them feel secluded. So finding a time with their therapist that works with any extracurriculars. You don't want those types of things to get in the way of all the other fun stuff that they can be doing. And I know caseworkers have limited time. They are working and overloaded, but really trying to see what is possible. How can we make the monthly visit work so that it's not interfering with other things on the child's calendar? The visitation schedule can be a little trickier because parents are trying to work most often, and they're working their case plan to get their kids back. And so they have limited availability to have that visitation scheduled. And the visitation centers typically have, a really tight schedule. So there are like prime time visitations that get booked up really fast, and you're on a waiting list for a Saturday afternoon. But find ways to make it work. And sometimes that can even be having the GAL come when the caseworker is coming. So it's only one time on the calendar that is set aside. They can ask the questions. A lot of times the kids are getting asked the same questions over and over again. So when appropriate, consolidating those would be in their best interest. So again, the number one thing I think is to really just advocate and speak up for your child's schedule. Protect it at all costs so that they can have all those other things that they want to do that are going to create that normalcy. Number two is what we typically hear about, and that is get them involved, find the extracurriculars, get them involved in a sport, in a play. I don't know what else kids do nowadays. I'm sure there might be like a gaming club, but finding something that the child is interested in, that they have that creative release or that energy release. And even though their schedule might be a little crazy and there might be some conflicts, that might not necessarily mean they can't participate at all. And of course, this is going to depend on how comfortable the child is with other people knowing their situation. So some kids, they're on the basketball team and they're like, hey, I got to miss practice because I'm seeing my mom and dad. And people are like, oh, well, I thought she was your mom. And it's like, no, that's my foster mom. Some kids are just open about it. Like, here's where it is. Others don't want anyone to know. You have to kind of have a nuanced way of speaking with the grown-ups in a confidential manner and making the schedule work. This also includes for the older kids, have them start their driving school. That's something that would need approval from the caseworker and probably the parents. You always want to make sure that you aren't overstepping certain milestones and taking those from the parents, because that's been the case. When we've had kids who are ready to start that process, check in with mom and dad. We don't want to be the first ones to have them driving with us. If that's important to dad or mom, we want them to have that experience. We don't want to take that away. At the same time, we want to make sure that they develop at the same pace as their peers. And so if everybody at school is getting their license, getting their temporary permit, and they want to do that, like fight for getting that approval. The same is to be said with getting an after-school job. This is a critical piece of development for teens. A lot of times you'll have teens who are either really, really involved in like extracurriculars, and some of them might have a job too, or like a summer job. But some kids really don't want to be involved, and they just want to work and save money and spend money and order DoorDash with all the money that they make. Again, find a way to get them that job that they want. Get the approval from the caseworker. Talk to their employer about the schedule, because a lot of times with younger kids, it's all about their availability. So really work with them. They don't necessarily have to know all the details. Just say that they have firm commitments at these times. Can we work something out? This is really important. So again, it's about advocating for these kids, speaking up on their behalf for what's in their best interest. And I want to talk about prudent parenting, which is kind of like the third bucket. We are in a state that has prudent parenting, and I've talked about this before. On paper, it is a great thing. It basically says that the foster caregiver, the kinship caregiver, has the ability to make certain decisions. This can include like a sleepover. If a child is wanting to, go to Kings Island and they're 15 and they're developmentally appropriate to be unsupervised, yeah, go ahead and let them go have fun. They don't have to be watched 24/7 if that is going to be the same for their peers. Now, would you leave a 10-year-old alone at Kings Island? Probably not. But again, we're talking about, take the child, take their age, their developmental abilities, and if it's appropriate, the caregiver can make that decision. So this is great on paper. They're invited to a sleepover and you're like, hey, this falls under prudent parenting, so I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. We don't need to check in with the caseworker. And again, this is just my experience and what I've heard from others. Some agencies and states do this well and some do not. From our experience, prudent parenting doesn't happen because we can make decisions and then after the fact, we're told, oh, that should have gone through the caseworker. It's like, okay, but prudent parenting. And it's like, well, yeah, but if something were to happen. So this is something that I think is an area of opportunity for agencies to really clear up. This is also something that is not across the board. So some states say that they promote prudent parenting, others do not. And I would say typically, if you've ever been involved in an investigation or an accusation as a caregiver, it leaves you kind of scared to make any decisions without getting approval. And so again, that's something that I think we can work on, because take that Kings Island, example, and let's say something happened to that teen while they were alone at Kings Island. And you say, well, it was reasonable to have them go and hang out, without being supervised. They had a phone, we had an emergency plan, we had all these things. If the child were to be hurt, you as the caregiver are not protected. You're not protected under prudent parenting. So that's why it's a super gray area. I don't love it. And I think it's something we can work on. So I hope this video really showed the importance of promoting normalcy as a caregiver and gave you a few tips on how you can effectively do that. And when in doubt, ask the child who's placed with you, what do they want? What do they want to do? Sometimes it's that easy. And if they kind of begrudgingly say, oh, I don't know, I don't really know what I want to do, start probing and ask questions about what their interests are. Search around, ask other parents in your area, talk to the school and see what are ways to get them involved. The same you would do for any kid. And while I don't love the normalcy term, really it's just making sure that the child is getting the same experiences that they would if they weren't in foster care. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and that your notifications are on, and I will see you next time.